ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Alusine Kanu. I'm visionary of Alusine Multicultural Consulting. I'm privileged to be here with you to tell you about the services I provide. I provide individual, family, career counseling, and I offer opportunities for business development and organizational development. My background is communication generalist, human resource generalist, and multicultural counseling. Anytime you want someone to talk to in a constructive way to deal with problems, issues, and conflicts, contact Alusine Multicultural Counseling. The topic for today is what is communication? One of my relatives the other day asked me the question. She said, "You are a professor in communication, to tell me what is communication." So I chose to develop this video to give my expert opinion of what communication is. Communication has many definitions. There are more than 5,000 interpretations of the word, from the least educated to the highly educated. Some say communication is the means by which we make common. You have an idea, another person has another idea, and you make common. Some say communication is an interaction. I send a message and I receive feedback. Some say communication is a transaction, a simultaneous exchange where the sender becomes the receiver and the receiver becomes the sender. So there are many ways of looking at the process of communication. Experts say communication is a systematic process in which individuals interact with and through symbols to create and establish meaning. That definition has a need for elaboration. First, communication is a systematic because there are a series of elements that affect one another anytime we communicate. For example, this is the sender. For the sender to communicate, the sender needs a receiver. So the channel is the medium based on which the sender transmits the message to the receiver. Then we have the sensory receptors, the seeing, the hearing, the tasting, the touching. And then we have the message itself, what person A wants person B to get. And then we have a response. When person A sends the message to person B, how person B feels about the message is a response. And then we have feedback. What person A now receives from person B in relation to their initial message. Then you have the situation. So we say communication is systematic because all those 8 elements affect one another, sometimes in a linear way. One person sends the message, no response, no feedback. Sometimes in a transaction, one person sends the message and you get feedback. Sometimes in a transaction. So those are ways of looking at the systematic process. Individuals interact. They exchange, they send and receive messages. And the process goes on continuously in a symbolic way, in an interactive way, in a transactional way. And to understand communication at any level, we have to understand that communication is a systematic process. Individuals affect one another. And whether it's a linear interaction or transaction, it's the meaning you convey. Whether the intended meaning is the perceived meaning. That's what communication is. Next time when I talk, we will talk about the types of communication. But communication we make common. It's a systematic process. It's an interaction. It's a transaction. And the most important element in communication is the meaning you convey. Whether the meaning has ethical, social, educational, personal implications. It's the meaning we convey. So thank you, and I hope I have said things to think about when we think about communication. Communication can be defined in many ways, but a perspective to take in defining communication has to do with the types of communication. What researchers and experts have taught us is that communication can be classified into about 7 different components. The first type of communication is called intrapersonal communication, which has to do with when we communicate within the self, self-talk, dialogues we have within the self is intrapersonal communication. Much of intrapersonal communication is borrowed from psychology, Sigmund Freud, Adler, Jung, Erickson, about the idea that when we communicate within the self, messages are exchanged from the conscious to the unconscious. And we have the ego, which is the gatekeeper that processes those messages. So anytime we process messages within the self, from a conscious to an unconscious, or from unconscious to conscious, then we are communicating intrapersonally. That's the first type of communication. The second type of communication is interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication has to do with communication between 2 or more people. And the basic unit of interpersonal communication is called a dyad. Dyadic communication has to do with how we develop and how we maintain relationships. There are several reasons why 2 people will choose to communicate. Sometimes you want to say, I'm sociable, I'm here, so are you. For some, 2 people will communicate to exchange affection. to give or to receive love. Another reason two people will communicate is to share ideas and information. Another reason is to complete a task or to resolve conflict or to heal. All of those are two reasons why people would choose to communicate in a dyad. But in dyadic communication, we study communication within the family, in friendship, in romantic, and in family settings. That's the second type of communication. The third type of communication is group and team communication. A group is 3 to 7 individuals who have a goal. They are interdependent. They exchange task and relational behaviors, and they work towards the accomplishment of goals and objectives. That's group and team communication. In groups, we consider a group as a system. We study how groups make decisions, how groups solve problems, how groups resolve conflict, what to do if you are a leader in a group, and how to have a discussion and have equal participation towards the accomplishment of goals. Another type of communication is public communication. Public communication is the oldest form of communication. When communication started almost 2,000 years ago in study, it was mainly public communication. In public communication, we have 3 variables. You have a speaker, you have an audience, and you have a message. And there are 3 reasons why people speak in public. Some speak in public to inform, others speak in public to persuade, others speak in public to entertain. So public communication is another type. Another type of communication is mass communication. With mass communication, when we use electronic or technological devices to transmit messages to a large number of people. Mass communication has theories of agenda setting. Sometimes the audience sets the agenda, sometimes the media sets the agenda. It has the theory of gratification. It feels good when we are involved in technology or media. It has the theory of social exchange. So mass communication is another type of communication. Another type of communication is organizational communication. We study how communication occurs in organizations. Sometimes the hierarchy from the leader to the employee. There are many theories of organizational communication. There is the bureaucratic approach, the human relations approach, the human resource approach, the cultural approach, the feminist approach, and the postmodern approach. All of those are ways we study organizations as they deal with issues of change, as they deal with issues of productivity. The last type of communication is intercultural communication. In intercultural communication, we study cultures, we study worldviews, behaviors, attitudes, beliefs, values, customs, music. We study how cultures are similar and why cultures are different in terms of individualism, collectivism, masculinity, femininity, how cultures cope with uncertainty, how cultures deal with power distance, how cultures evolve, how they change, how they interact with other cultures. One thing about intercultural communication is that when you learn about another culture, it allows you to look at your own culture and see why you do the things you do. So those are the types of communication: intrapersonal, interpersonal, small group, public, mass, intercultural, organizational. I hope when we communicate, we consider the type we are using, and the goal is to use that type effectively and appropriately. Thank you.